Minnesota sports fans, we know all too well how it feels to sign up for a lifetime of purple pain. Welcome to Before We Die with Jesse and Thor on Purple Daily and Score North.
What's going on, everybody? This is Purple Daily's Before We Die on Score North. I'm Jesse Pierce, normally roaming around at a hockey rink. I will be doing so this evening for the Minnesota Wild game, but now I'm giving the Vikings a shot. You know, I hop on the bandwagon of 6-1 teams. That's what we're doing. He's Thor Nystrom, tossing down the hammers. Cannot wait. Beautiful background, Thor. Beautiful background. Cannot wait to talk about that new Minnesota Vikings tight end. And Ross, what do you love about the Vikings?
I love the pain of being a Minnesota Vikings fan because it lets me know I'm still alive.
Well, we got some anesthesia for you this year, Ross.
I like it. Let's hope it carries through and makes it all the way through the surgery. Nothing worse than waking up during the surgery.
That's true.
That's true. That sounds aggressive and terrible and awful. But you know what doesn't sound aggressive and terrible and awful? TJ Hawkins. Let's talk about that. Hockenson coming to the Minnesota Vikings. Huge impact, huge potential for Minnesota. Are you guys surprised? I mean, we've talked about it before on this podcast that, you know what, if they think they're a piece away, go out and do it. This seems like that exact move.
I'm not surprised that they made a trade for an inline tight end. It was one of the two positions I said to look out for a trade for. I am surprised the guy they were able to get and the price they were able to get him for. TJ Hawkinson is one of the best young tight ends in the NFL, and he's not one of those fake tight ends that you can only stick in the slot, basically a big slot. He is a true inline dual threat tight end, play in and play out. He's a great receiver who O'Connell's going to do all sorts of interesting stuff with. But the other thing about him, he's a movable chess piece. I got to watch a ton of him in his college, whatever, because I'm an Iowa grad. I don't miss an Iowa snap. TJ Hawkinson was moved all over there. You put him in line, you can put him in the slot, you can motion him into the backfield. He can function as a lead blocking fullback in short yardage situations, blow people up. You can do so many different things with him. And I think Kevin O'Connell's mind, it's like the blowing your mind, gif, just of the possibilities of having that guy in a situation where the defense is never going to be keyed in on TJ Hawkinson on an offense where you have Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, et cetera, et cetera. Great trade, fabulous trade, and TJ Hawkinson is going to be a good player for the Vikings.
Like you said, a very good pickup for the Minnesota Vikings at a very low cost. Detroit really continues their struggles. Poor Dan Campbell. I can't imagine he's around much longer. But TJ did have this to say about coming to the Minnesota Vikings in our first. They said it. He said, I'm just excited to have a piece in this puzzle. A lot of good guys around here. This facility is beautiful. So I'm just excited to be here, man. There's nowhere I'd rather be. I mean, look at that beautiful specimen of a man behind Thor there. I mean, he just is going to fit in so well. He's making his debut Sunday against the Washington Commanders at noon. How do you think Kirk is going to be able to work with him? We obviously know Irv Smith Jr. unfortunately hurt, a story, tale as old as time.
Don't say.
Shocking. He's on the mend. So, even bigger for Hockenson to come into that. But how do you think Kirk is going to be able to play with TJ?
Very, very well. Cousins loves
how
throwing.
Quick, though, Thor? How quick?
Yes.
Because I feel like it will take a little bit of time. It'll be felt immediately, but the height of its impact, I don't think will be felt right away. And I don't even think that that's fair.
Agreed. Yeah, I think against the commies this weekend, you're going to see partial snaps from Hockenson in the high leverage things, in the red zone, different stuff like that, where plays where they're going to be looking for the inline tight end, or they need him to attract attention from the other side of the defense, whatever. But no, I don't think you're going to see him on the field every snap this coming Sunday. No player can learn a playbook in 3 days. TJ Hawkinson's already had to learn 3 different ones with the Lions because they had 3 different offensive coordinators. He can pick up the playbook, but it would be a lot to ask him to pick it up to the degree that he could run everything perfect, 100% of the snaps. So I think we'll see partial snaps this weekend. And then after that, I think he's going to be a full go.
Allow yourself to go inside the mind of TJ Hawkinson. I'm sure he grew an affinity to Detroit and the greater Detroit area. But imagine going from a team that I believe is 1-6 to a team that is 6-1. I mean, it literally is night and day. He just went from football purgatory to a team and a franchise that largely competes for the playoffs year in and year out. and this year has a great shot to be a very high seed in the NFC. He's talked about it as Jesse talked about in They Said It, which I'm going to hit because I have the button.
I have another one too.
Oh, you do? Well,
Yeah.
do you want me to hit your actual open for it? Are you ready for
Yeah.
it?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, here we go. If I can find it. I love how I said I was ready and then I'm not. Here we go.
They said it.
Kind of going off the tangent of Kirk Cousins and how he is going to fit in TJ Hawkinson. He actually asked the team to do a cut up of some film so he could see what TJ is capable of and some of his best plays. And of that, Kirk said, I think it helps to watch a player at their best because you say, okay, this is what they're capable of. If they're not doing that, then it's somebody else's fault. So I want to see them at their absolute best. What's their ceiling? And then it's my job to access that ceiling as much as possible. But you also don't want to ask too much of someone. So you want to understand, hey, maybe that's not their game. That's not their skill set. That's not their natural wiring. So let's not ask that of them. So really, I mean, I think Kirk is just as excited, right? I can just picture a bigger chain on Kirk if he's able to connect with TJ Hawkinson right off the bat against the Commanders this coming Sunday. But very exciting for Kirk Cousins to have just another offensive weapon to utilize now moving forward down this second half of the season.
And just so needed, right? I mean, this was the hole on the team. I had mentioned the cornerback thing, but you're not going to displace Patrick Peterson. You're probably not going to displace Dantzler. The only one you could have thought about potentially where it wouldn't have ruffled any feathers, maybe the slot thing. But on offense, the very clear need wasn't a true inline tight end. The Vikings haven't had any productivity from their tight ends this year. Irv Smith, as I've said this entire time, is not a true inline tight end, and he's not a particularly good player. I would like to wave goodbye to Irv. I don't think we're gonna see him again. He's no longer needed. Hockenson is going to pick everything up, in terms of both the running game and the passing game, and it adds a different element to this offense. Having an upper tier tight end like that, again, who is never going to get the defensive resources when he's out there. He's always going to be an advantageous situation because of the guys that he's playing with. And he's playing with a quarterback that loves looking for the tight end. It's a match made in heaven. And I also think he's going to greatly improve the running game. Hockenson to this point has been like an average blocking inline tight end. Like the year before, he was pretty good. This year, according to the PFF grades, it's dropped off a little bit. Hockenson is the best blocking tight end I have ever evaluated doing the NFL draft work. He wiped people out at Iowa. In fact, when he came out into the draft, of course, he was a top 10 overall pick in 2019. There was as many highlight reels put out on Twitter of him blocking as there were of him receiving. And he's a stud receiver who is an awesome athlete in that enormous package, but he is a wipe you out blocker. There was plays where he took 3 defenders out of a play.
Thor is often the case in the world that we live in. When I saw the trade first come across, it looked like the Vikings gave up a slew of draft picks. Well, that ended up not being the case. Are you surprised that the deal, I think the deal's very fair for both teams. Are you surprised that what the Vikings ended up giving up was enough to get TJ Hawkinson? Because newsflash, it was. That's why they got him. But then they traded him within the division. So the offers for him had to be fairly low if that's the best that they could get and move him within the division. I was surprised by that. Happy to have him, but surprised by what it took to get him.
I was surprised that they didn't have to give up more. I mean, absolutely. When it was Hockenson and a 4th, and then a conditional 4th, which is actually going to be a 5th, I believe, with the language of it, because it only goes to a 4th, I believe, that second one, if the Vikings don't make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So it's Hockenson, a 4th this coming year, a 5th the year after that. And then the Vikings gave up their second rounder this coming year and the third rounder the year after that. But to your point, Ross, you consider the draft pick value. The Vikings certainly are going to be picking at the end of the second round this coming, this season, whatever. The 4th round pick they're going to get back, it's going to be one of the first picks on day 3. There's not an enormous gap, but between the two, just in terms of the slot. And I looked at the Rich Hill trade chart. People talk a lot about the Jimmy Johnson one. A lot of NFL teams have gone away from that one because it's sort of an antiquated way of looking at the draft pick value. The Rich Hill one is used more now. It's considered more accurate as far as that goes. If you deduct the points of the picks that the Lions gave to from what the Vikings gave up, the Vikings essentially gave up. If the thing goes if it was the 4th round pick, if let's say the Vikings somehow did not make the playoffs, so then it became the 4th pick, the Vikings would have given up the equivalent of the number 69 pick in this coming draft to get Hockenson. That's it. Assuming that it drops down to a 5th, it's going to become just slightly higher in the 3rd round, mid 60s or whatever. And yeah, that's a steal. But to your point about like other teams not offering, it's interesting, right? Because it's a position where you only start one guy, and you look around the NFL at the rest of the contenders. How many of them had a hole as big at inline tight end as the Minnesota Vikings? It was the perfect marriage, and we just got to be grateful that the Lions were willing to trade a guy like that in the division. I wouldn't want to face him twice a year if I was that team.
I'm sorry, but I do have to do this immature Ross alert. The 69th overall pick is a very nice pick.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
Very nice. I like you.
We'll put a wrap on the TJ talk with one final question.
Oh, I like that TJ talk.
The TJ talk. You got the JJ, you got a KJ, now you got a TJ. The Vikes are rolling. Is this it? Is this the piece that you need? I know, Thor, you have 100% been saying this team is probably going to go make a run to the Super Bowl. We've been talking about it more and more. They're 6-1. Is this the missing piece that you are now confident to say, hey, yep, this is a Super Bowl team?
Well, I'll say that you guys know how bullish I was in the preseason, right? And 12-5, and so far it was going real well. They're 6-1, whatnot. But you go to bed 3 days ago or whatever, 2 days ago. I guess 3 days ago.
I was going to say, were you able to sleep? I feel like you're the giddy kid that was like, oh my gosh, this is so real.
Thor, Tuesday, I was walking on clouds, man.
Thor was like every kid after getting into the Halloween candy on Halloween night, just shaking.
I feel like my skin is glowing. Like the last 2 days, I've just been jacked up. But before that, the night before, in my true heart of hearts, I don't think I could have said I think the Vikings are like a legitimate contender to win the Super Bowl on Monday. They are now. They absolutely are. That's a team that nobody is going to want to play in the playoffs, including the Eagles. None of them are going to want to face the Vikings now. You've already seen them go through an extremely hard stretch of their schedule, the hardest stretch of it at the beginning, and go 6-1 while they were learning these two extremely disparate schemes from what they were doing before. They just sort of cobbled it together and went 6-1. And now they got Hockenson. Now on defense, they're starting to figure out the 3-4 thing. That defense has gotten better and better and better. We haven't even been able to complain about Ed Donatel the last 2 or 3 weeks. And it is going to keep getting better. And now the offense, now you have that chess piece for both the run and the pass game, where you're going to be able to take advantage of the mismatches you get in coverage in the passing game. And he's going to help out Delvin Cook a lot too, as well as a blocker. This team is a legitimate Super Bowl contender now. Absolutely.
Yeah, if the Vikings are to go on this year and win one before we die, I don't know if we'll look back and say, oh, the reason why they did this was because of the trade deadline day trade to get TJ Hawkinson. But it's a no-brainer. I mean, how could it not help? Especially when you talk about the assets that you got in return to help offset the assets that you gave up. Look, a cardboard cutout would have helped this team at tight end. They went out and actually got one of the better tight ends in the National Football League. It can't hurt. The only way it hurts is if he shows up and gets injured in warm-ups and never plays for the Vikings.
Don't say it.
And
don't put it out there.
I'm sorry I had to put it out there. I'm sorry. I hope that doesn't happen, but it's a no-brainer.
It's exciting. Vikings Nation should be excited. Feel the purple.
Vikings Nation.
It. However, you know what? If they win the Super Bowl, and I don't want anybody coming at me in the comments, do we have to stop doing the show?
No, we'll just call it like before we die again.
One more?
Or win a second before we die.
After death.
After death, yeah, there we go.
Maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. Ain't right.
Win a second before we die. I like that. Do it again.
Yeah. Exactly. So, welcome, TJ. Let's look ahead to Sunday, you guys. Kirk Cousins heading back to Washington as a visiting quarterback for the first time, a place that he is very, very familiar with. All the feels. Is Kirk going to have a heck of a game now? Because, he's got, you don't want to call it a revenge game, right? I mean, it's just been a minute since he's been there. But, do you think Kirk is going to show out, especially in Washington? I'm sure it'll be a nice welcome back, but maybe he'll welcome them back with a big L as well.
Video tribute for Kirk Cousins?
Video tribute for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and I hope we get a big you like that after that game. Is what I want. I want him to grab the mic and it's over the stadium. He just yells, "You like that?" Whether he has an awesome game or not, I don't think is dependent on him. I think it's dependent on the Vikings offensive line. The one thing that you're concerned about with Washington is their defensive front generates heat. And so can they get the pressure into Cousins' face? Cousins we've talked about this in past episodes. Cousins has been awesome from clean pockets this year. He has struggled when under pressure. And then it becomes this sort of thought experiment on the Washington defensive coaching side. And I'm sure they've gone through this all week. We can improve our odds of getting that pressure onto Cousins by sending more blitzers, right? But you do that, you can't do the double team thing on Jefferson. So you're going to have to leave him single covered, if you want to do it that way. Or can Washington derive pressure without blitzing? They have the very skilled edge rushers and stuff like that. I don't know. With the Vikings having gotten the better offensive line, I think Washington may have to send the blitzers. But again, that leaves you susceptible on the back end. But it's all going to come down to the Vikings offensive line ability to handle Washington's pressure. If they can do that, Cousins is going to carve them up because Washington's secondary stinks. Minnesota's receivers will eat them alive if Cousins has enough time.
I tend to be a lot less hard on college football teams and NFL teams and the Minnesota Vikings in general when they play on the road. Historically, going to, I believe we call it FedEx Field now, unless that changed, that's not the world's easiest place to play. I know they're not getting 90,000 plus people there every game anymore, but that historically is not a super hard play or easy place to play. This, to me, for as hard as I've been on the Vikings for not putting away teams, I don't really believe it's a trap game because Washington's record overall is pretty good, and they're now in the mix for a playoff spot in the NFC. This, to me, is just a game. Find a way to win it and get out of there with the win and start turning your attention to Buffalo. I think this will be a game. I believe it will be fairly close, but I would be pleasantly surprised if the Vikings can win comfortably. But for me, I really don't want to lose this game. I think this is a really big and important victory to get, especially against a team in the NFC, even when it comes to common opponents. Just win, baby.
Just win, baby. I mean, Washington riding on a 3-game win streak themselves to get back to 500 and 4-4.
Heineke,
behind Taylor Heineke, you guys. We had talked about Kirk struggling in the pocket. Heineke's willing to stand in the pocket. Kevin O'Connell had said that. He's scrappy. He's tough. Faces the rush and keep his eyes downfield and find the open man. I mean, Taylor Heineke, who saw that coming? Who has seen that coming at all?
I don't know if I saw Taylor Heineke coming, but I definitely did see the child making an appearance in the podcast coming because that's a staple.
It's a new one too. It's one that hasn't made an appearance before, and honestly,
I'd love to get Thor's take on this. I'm actually really happy for Taylor Heineke because I think every time he's had a chance to play for the Washington football team or whatever they were called before, or now the Commies, he's played pretty well. He's played pretty well every time he's gotten an opportunity. I was surprised that they thought Carson Wentz was that much better than Taylor Heineke, especially after what we saw from Taylor Heineke in the playoffs. So, look, I want Taylor Heineke to play wellish on Sunday, but I don't want him to play so well that the Vikings lose.
Yeah, and I think the Wentz thing, it was they were just hoping and praying on ceiling there because it's like, oh, if Wentz becomes really good again, then maybe our ceiling is a team that can advance in the playoffs. I like Heineke fine. He's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league when that's what he is. But, and he doesn't embarrass himself when he's on the field. He gives you a shot to win. And in short term, he might be better than Carson Wentz. But, right now, Heineke is 41st in PFF passing grade. He's 32nd in adjusted completion rate. So there's just the physical limitations on him a little bit. But the thing that concerns you here is the Vikings defense, I believe, is dead last in the nation in DVOA against short passes. And Heineke doesn't have the howitzer arm, so he's looking in the short and intermediate area. Developed a very good rapport with Scary Terry McLaurin, and
Scary Terry.
Terry earlier this year wasn't doing so good, but now Heineke's in. Now all of a sudden, Scary Terry back to being scary. Well, against the Vikings cornerbacks, that's the thing that concerns you. It's like the shifty guys where it's really hard to stay with them.
Can the shell move in 5 yards this week?
Maybe. We might have to, right? Like, because I don't expect Heineke to beat them down the field, but that would be the one concern there. is him just nicking you with paper cuts. And then, guys like Scary Terry then doing the yak thing afterwards and just sort of advancing down that way. And they can control the ball in that way. But like, for the first time all season, I'm no longer concerned about the Vikings run defense. I mean, they have patched things up and stuff. And I know there's some injury concerns up front, but like, especially against this Washington team that has, they platoon the rookie. All he is a short yardage grinder, Brian Robinson. I like him fine, but he's not a dynamic back. He's just like a hammer in between the tackles. And then Gibson, who they had already soured on, not concerned about that. It's the short passing game of Washington that's going to concern us.
Thor, do you know what Robinson is? And Jesse, this applies to you too, because I'm going to steal your bit. You know what Robinson is? He's a touchdown poacher in fantasy football is what he is.
Obligatory fantasy football mention.
That was Ross throwing the alley-oop to himself off the backboard.
It really was.
Yeah.
It really was. Your own dunk.
Yeah.
Beautiful. You know what I'm not worried about for the Minnesota Vikings, though, this week? Zadarius Smith, and your NFC Defensive Player of the Month.
Monster.
Love to see it. We talked about him a little bit in Monday's episode, but obviously Smith, exceptional in sacks the past 2 weeks in particular. 2 in Miami, 3 sacks over Arizona. I mean, is this another week that Smith is going to come out, get the tackles, and help this defense to a victory?
Need to, right? Yeah. I mean, you need to ramp up the heat on Heineke to be able to put a kink into the thing I was just talking about. You can't have him comfortable back there. You got to mess up his timing. And that was the best thing that the Vikings defense did against Kyler Murray. It was both the sacks, but like we were talking about last episode, they were getting there so quick that even when Murray wasn't sacked, he had to step up into the pocket or change his route or change his plan in the moment and then get the ball off either too soon or too late with the timing of the play. Absolutely is needed in this one. And Zadarius Smith, who I believe leads the NFL in both sacks and tackles for loss, we need him to step up again here.
Yes, let's dive into, speaking of stepping up, I know you guys need to step up in Thor's hammers. Because
boy.
Do we have the graphic to say who's winning in the graphic?
For some reason, we don't have the graphic. I wonder why that is. But you know what we do have, though? We have this soon-to-be award-winning open.
Thor's Hammers.
I love it. Okay, well,
actually, Thor, just for you, because I moved studios, I have something else I can give you today for Thor's Hammers, I believe.
Let's see it.
Is that my own kids in the background? Because literally they were just doing that. And I was like, oh
no,
my God.
We have a hammer graphic going on.
Well,
I
sorry
did
about that,
appreciate
Jesse.
somebody in the YouTube comments who had said it certainly has to be Thor's. Do you hear that?
I hear it now. I hear it now.
Oh, wait.
It has to be Thor's Hammers and not Thor's hammer, because then it means something completely different.
Oh boy. Boy. Let's just throw them out there, Thor. Let's get to them.
All right, let's get to it. I've moved within one game of Jesse in the standings. So don't look into your rear view mirror, because objects are closer than they appear, Jesse.
Not afraid.
And this is the week we're getting back. We start, as we always do, with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins' passing yardage in this game has been set at 265.5. We will begin with our leaderboard winner so far. Jesse, do you like the over or under on Cousins 265.5?
Under.
You're going to go under. Okay, why?
I don't know. My gut says under.
Your gut says under. Okay, Ross?
Yeah.
Everything I do is wrong. I'm going to pull the George Costanza. I wanted to say under, but since everything I do is wrong, I'm going to go with over. I'll take the over.
Okay. You're going to go over.
I'm buried in last place, by the way. I'm not even close, so I'm doing the opposite this time.
This is true.
We're going over.
This one's a tough one for me because, again, I think it all comes back to the Vikings offensive line. I don't think it has anything to do with Cousins or the receivers. And it's so close. I think he averages in the mid 250s for the season. I'm gonna shade under on it. We go Dalvin Cook 79.5 rushing yards. Jesse, over or under?
You're gonna have to say that one more time because I have 1, 2, 3 children in here right now for some reason. Please repeat.
Dalvin Cook over or under 79.5?
Over. Let's get cooking, baby.
Yeah, this one I actually believe in. This is the easiest over of all time.
You're going over.
I'm going over. Yep.
Okay. I'll join you guys. The Washington defensive front does concern me, but Delvin has played so well in recent weeks, and the run blocking for the Vikings has been awesome. So you just got to kind of trust that. Plus, if you think the Vikings are going to be ahead and win the game, you're going to need Delvin to run more in the second half. The last player prop we're going to do today, I wanted to get one for the opponent. We mentioned him before, Scary Terry McLaurin. He is set at 63.5 receiving yards. Jesse, over or under?
Under.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to go with over. You can't call a guy Scary Terry and then he gets less than 63 receiving
That's just
yards.
why I want the under. You ain't scaring me, man. You ain't scaring me at all.
Okay.
I'm going over.
He scares me a little bit, to be honest, with this matchup. So I'm going to go over. And also, I think Washington might be having to pass more than, or maybe as often as usual, but down in the fourth quarter. Last two are the game ones. So I'll go one at a time this time. Vikings are -3.5. Some books have it at 3, but most of the books have it at Vikings -3.5. Jesse, do you like the Vikings or are you taking the points with the commies?
I like the Vikings. Like I said, yep.
Okay.
Thor, they're going to win a game comfortably at some point. I say, why not? I'll take the under. No, I'm just joking. No, the over. No, I'll take the Vikings to cover.
Yep.
Okay. I was on a Commander show or whatever earlier today, and they asked me for my final prediction, and I said Vikings 24-20. So I guess I am taking the Vikings to cover by half a point. So I will agree with you guys on that. I think I just gave a spoiler alert on my last answer, but the last one is the over-under for this game is set at 43.5 points. Jesse, over or under?
43.5. Over.
Okay.
I'll take the over as well because I think the Vikings will score 27 or more points.
Nice.
Okay, and
So
I'm
I'll
going
take the
over
over.
on that one by a half a point.
You guys are all just copying me. That's why you had me go first. You're like,
Stop
yeah,
it.
no, that's
I made up
sounds
2
good.
games on you in the standings the last 2 weeks.
It doesn't
I
do me
think
any.
24-20.
It doesn't do me any good to steal your answers. I should actually already be doing the opposite of you
Really
because I'm
should
so
be.
far behind.
I'm just, yeah, that's very true. Although this just maintains my lead, so that's fine with me if you guys want
There
to
you
do
go.
that, whatever.
You want to do some comments from YouTube?
Let's
Should we
do
hit
it.
those up?
Yeah.
Comments from YouTube.
You do my job and get rid of this banner. We'll add this one. All right, I pulled a few for you. Some funny, some in good nature, good football nature. Mitchell Harrington says, this team cannot compete against elite teams in the league, meaning we are not playing at a championship level. I don't see this team improving to the point of putting opponents away. There's a few questions in there, but we've talked about this seemingly every podcast. At 6-1, is this team playing at a championship level?
I mean, I'll start. I think, and this is going to probably sound a little crazy to some of you because you know me, I have been very on the
Packers
fence
fan.
about, yeah, very much a Packers fan. Just on the fence as to what this team actually is at 6-1, even, right? Each win, it just hasn't really convinced me. However, Kwesi convinced me by going out and getting TJ Hawkinson. I think that move alone in my mind just kind of teeters me over to saying, okay, this maybe is the real deal. This maybe is the team. Obviously, he believes in it. Of course, Kwesi probably has believed in it all along. But I mean, just to go out and get such a big piece like that and say, this is what we need, as I've said, that speaks volumes. So I think now maybe, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do this. I'm going to end up hurt at the end of all this, but it's fine. Like I'm in.
It's okay, Jesse. The pain lets you know you're
Still
alive.
The championship game is not played in September. It's not played in October. In those 2 months, the Vikings went 6-1 when they were doing the dramatic scheme shifts on both sides of the ball. And now they just dramatically improved their roster. Championship games in a couple months, and the arrows for the Vikings are pointing upwards and towards that. Do not be concerned, my children.
Oh, man, if you're my dad, so much has gone wrong with my life. This from I Want to Talk Samson says...
I want to talk to Samson. Have you never seen
I want to
Samson?
talk
Good
to
idea.
Samson.
I want
It's,
to talk to Samson.
Samson,
To the moon.
I wish I knew what that was. I'm not cool.
Half baked. Anyway.
Oh, really? How could I have missed that? Wow. I think we got a pretty good idea how I could have missed that.
It was on during Dateline.
Last Sunday was only a one-possession game. simply because Greg No Leg can't make a clutch extra point or field goal.
Shots fired.
So the special teams whisperer has thought about this.
Mm-hmm.
The special teams whisperer is willing to give Greg Joseph one more chance at FedEx Field because we all know it's not a great place to kick. He can earn my respect back if he makes every kick on Sunday. If he misses one kick, it's time to go dumpster diving and see what's on the scrap heap. That's my thoughts. Yours?
Agreed.
I think that's completely agreed. The gauntlet has been thrown. See what he can do with it.
He is on some thin ice, and the next big missed kick, if he doesn't gain some equity in the meantime, yeah, it's time to make a move.
He's on some thin ice, and it's already been ice out in the Twin Cities.
That's right.
SK says, I'm with Jess. I'll call you Jess now.
Wow.
On the
You know,
gravy
more people
tank.
call me Jess than Jesse. Fun fact. But anyway.
That stuff sucks on everything.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse, you're not allowed to talk here. I'm actually just going to mute you. Thor, SK, and Jesse are 100% wrong here. This is just
1,000%.
not even close. I think SK, if I could ban you from the YouTube feed, I would.
Yeah, Jesse has the worst food takes I've ever heard. She's a
true.
great host. She's great to work with. The food takes, they're never going to come around. And that's fine. And that's one thing I want to say to people. Everyone has a debilitating weakness. You can't judge Jesse just because she has the worst food takes you've ever heard. You have to accept her and you know, and everything like that.
We're one community, but I don't have the worst food takes. So that's the problem that here. I think you're not understanding what taste is.
I'm going to close with this. Thor, Christopher Morrison on our side. He says, nerds, WTF.
Yeah.
Peanut butter cups and Snickers. A rule.
Trash. You guys, no, that's not. Nerds are delightful. They're crunchy.
No.
They're flavorful. Peanut butter cups.
Nerds, I have no problem with nerds. I don't even love a peanut butter cup, but I would never go as far as to say they're abhorrent and beneath you. Like you did.
No, they're for the peasants. So you guys enjoy your
They're sure not. And the thing you attributed a weakness to the Reese's peanut butter cups it's the same for every food. Because you were like, oh, when they're dried out and desiccated. Yeah, every food is like that. When it gets like that, it stinks.
If Reese's
I just don't like them. I just don't. They're just not good.
If Reese's peanut butter cups, let's play a fun one here. Yeah. Any sport, any athlete. If Reese's peanut butter cups were an athlete, who would they be?
The Arizona Coyotes. My hockey people will understand that one.
Well, you're speaking Latin.
I know, right?
I don't know what that means.
Maybe they'll be the New York Jets. I'll pick that. I'll go. Or no, you know what? I'm gonna come for Russ. I'm gonna go for Russ.
You know, we love to say that Jesse's a Packers fan, but only a true Minnesotan can say, "Oh no," like Jesse just did.
Let me squeeze right by you.
Well, let's do these and get out of here.
Time now for the Before We Die crew to give us their Before We Dies.
Thor, you kick it off this week.
Okay. Before we die, TJ Hawkinson is going to be an all-pro tight end for the Vikings, and he will slip a Super Bowl ring on his finger from the Minnesota Vikings.
Wow. You had me at the first one, but now
that's actually pulling it. That just landed. That took like 3 split seconds to land. I like that, Thor. So earlier this year, you know, I'm really bad at Thor's hammers, but I've been really good at making random predictions.
Yeah.
I don't know if it will be this weekend, but it will happen this year. The Minnesota Vikings will score a touchdown from an offensive lineman. And I'm not even going to go with, they recovered a fumble in the end zone. This innovative offense is going to scheme up a play where an offensive lineman checks in or lines up as a tight end, and we get a fat man touchdown.
Could we get the annexation of Puerto Rico?
The annexation of Puerto Rico. What I really want to see is what the Gopher football team did in a spring game a few years ago. I want to see the Ravens turn around and hand the ball off to Daniel Faalele, and that 420-pound body scores a rushing touchdown. That's.
Did you see when Faalele scored the touchdown for the Gophers at the end of last year? And what they called it?
Actually, I should have seen that because I was obviously Gopher football guy. No, what did they call it?
They called it the Thick Six.
I've already had my one dirty comment or two for the pod. I'm not going to say anything else. Jesse, take us home.
Justin, before we die, Justin Jefferson will pass Stephon Diggs in receiving yards. He's going to be better. I know that discussion has been going
Nice.
around, especially as the Buffalo Bills get set to face the Vikings next week. So JJ is coming for Diggs. He's going to pass him. It's going to be a beautiful thing for Minnesota Vikings fans.
Already has, in my opinion, but I'm with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's Purple Dailies. Before we die on Score North, I'm Jesse Pierce. He's Thor Nystrom. He's Ross Brundle. Check us out every Monday and Thursday, talking Vikings, talking food takes. I'll give you my recipes, guys. They're really good too. I highly recommend it. We sprinkle in a little bit of fun. Leave your comments. Let us know what you think. We're enjoying ourselves. Don't forget to come check us and the rest of the Purple Daily crew out on Sunday. Location is no longer at Surly. It is now at Rounders. Is it Rounders or First Round?
First round at Mall of America.
Rounders,
rounds on Thor.
That's
So
Mikey McD.
first
Joey
round on
Kinnick.
Thor.
Judd checked it out and said the place is awesome. He actually went out there and says it's a
Nice.
great place. So really looking forward to seeing everybody. I won't be there, but I know we'll have a great turnout because we've had a couple of great turnouts for these at Surly. And this will be no different because it's inside in a controlled environment with TVs galore.
And
day drinking Thor. I mean, what else?
And
could
Thor
you
and Jesse. Yep.
Yep. Best combination, baby.
do?
All right, you guys, we're going to get out of here. Enjoy the rest of your day and week. Go Vikes.
School Vikings and TJ Hawkinson, baby. Let's go.
Hennepin.